What's up everyone? I'm Trey Baird. This is Let's Play Tuesday, or Let's Play Tuesday, however you want to pronounce it. This is the debut of this new show I'm trying to get going. It's not Gossiping Games, not the same thing at all. On this show, we are focusing on the game and the storyline. So it's not the same at all. And we're going to honor the games that we play. I was feeling an RPG. For the first show, I was feeling an RPG that I was quite familiar with. I grew up playing this game. Let's just get right into it. You see, this was always an important decision right from the jump, right off the bat. What do you do? Whose game do you overwrite? Because this was in the day we were renting these games from mom and pop stores. Multiple people would be playing on this cartridge, and I always felt that the proper thing to do was to overwrite the game that was, the least amount invested into it. Whether you have the high level here or the longest amount of time, usually they were the same thing. You don't erase that file. Somebody spent a lot of time with that file. You go for the one that has the least amount of time and the lowest level. It's just the right thing to do. Usually people would follow that unspoken rule, but not always. And that just gave you more motivation to keep running that game until it was beat. New game. Of course, I won't have to make that decision until I actually save. Long ago, the War of the Magi reduced the world to a scorched wasteland and magic simply ceased to exist. 1,000 years have passed. Iron, gunpowder, and steam engines have been rediscovered and high technology reigns. But there are some who would enslave the world by reviving the dread destructive force known as magic. I love how you can see just a little bit of foreshadowing into who that person might be walk across the corner of the screen. I love that. Can it be that those in power are on the verge of repeating a senseless and deadly mistake? Don't worry, I'm not going to read the whole thing to you, but I just love that intro. It's short and to the point. I love the mythological aspect of this. She's like a witch. It's reminiscent of the Salem witch trials almost. Everyone's afraid of her. I played this game so much as a kid, you have no idea. And see, this opening scene right here, it just lets you know that you're in for a treat. It's just so epic right from the off the bat. I mean, how long? I've been playing for 5 minutes, and only excuse me. I've only, I haven't even been, playing the whole time. I've been recording for 5.5 minutes. And you can already tell you're in for something special. Very few games get that atmosphere right that I've played. Another game that really nails that, right from the beginning, sucks you in is Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild. It's no coincidence that that's also one of my favorite games of all time. So maybe there's a trend there. In most cases, I tend to prefer things that start off strong. Like, One notable exception is I'm a big fan of BoJack Horseman, the TV show, on Netflix, and it's one of those shows that really doesn't get going until several episodes in. I would go so far as to say if you haven't watched the entire first season, you really don't know whether you like the show or not, and that kind of thing isn't for everyone. But, with Final Fantasy VI, for example, or 3, however you want to look at it, it gets going immediately. Just wanted to note that I am playing on a Super Nintendo. I'm not big on emulators. Nothing against those who are, but it's just not my thing. Every time I used to record, I used to always drink beer or some other form of alcoholic beverage. Not today, I'm drinking water. So we are entering the city of Narshe, which is actually a city that was built out of a cave, which is really cool. And we're basically storming the city, and these are the city guards that are trying to prevent us from doing that. There goes some of that witchcraft, that fire beam from this lady who doesn't even have a name yet. 32 experience points. That's how you level up in this game. Vic's already gained a level. Wedge already gained a level. 96 GP or gold pieces. That's the currency of the game. So we keep going north. We continue to get attacked, this time by guard dogs. I hate guard dogs! Lobo! Lobo! Bring back Sheriff Lobo! Oh yeah, I forgot to do something. Tonic. That is what you can recover hit points with, HP. 50 hit points if I'm not mistaken. They're quite useful now, but they become less useful as the game goes because at this point 50 hit points is a lot. Like, the mystery woman only has 54 hit points as we speak. Later on, that 50 hit points ain't gonna be nothing. Later on, we'll skip a lot of the things that become redundant because one common gripe about Final Fantasy in general is that there's a lot of grinding, and unless you just go through the game at a snail's pace. Okay, so I always do this cursor memory. That way I can set what attacks I want to do and just kind of go on autopilot. It's like baseball, Baseball's the only sport you can take a nap while you play. And one thing that's cool about Final Fantasy is you can almost play it with one hand and snack with the other. That's why a lot of Final Fantasy fans were heavy in the day. Very fat kid friendly. And let's face it, there's a lot of overlap between fat kids and nerds. Call it like it is. There is. Not that there's anything wrong with that, of course. Here what we have what's known as a pincer attack. They're coming from both sides. They call it a pincer attack in this game. I think in later Final Fantasies they just call it attacked from both sides. But it means that you can't run. Usually in most battles you can choose to run. I try not to do that because there's already enough grinding in this game as it is. I want to get as many experience points as I can. Let's see, the mystery woman now has gained a level. That's a good thing. Alright, ready to move forward. You'll actually get the chance to return to Narshe again many times in the future. Later on, in a friendly capacity as opposed to attacking it. See, further I get in, the more desperate they are to defend what they're guarding and what we're after. The Esper that they talked about earlier while they were up on the cliff. So now they're sending these, you know, crazy looking monsters after us, the Volmammoths, along with the Magitech guards. Or, you know, no, we're the Magitech, I mean, I misspoke. But along with the Narshe guards. So now we're fighting off the vermin from the cave. We've pretty much decimated the front line of the Narshe defense. The interesting thing about this game is, you know, every RPG scales in difficulty as you go. You know, and I always appreciate it when a game kind of explains the in-game mechanics. Like Breath of the Wild does it wonderfully. And this game kind of explains the difficulty curve as it's the rediscovery of magic and really honing the use of magic. And as those magic skills improve, so does the difficulty of the enemies you face, because you're not the only one who's discovering the force of magic. You know, the entire world is. It's being unleashed back upon the entire world. So an Eerie surrounds you. We don't need to know anything. Well, you know, we'll learn, since, you know, you're along with the ride with me. You know, you can use a sleeping bag or a tent. A sleeping bag will recover one party member, a tent will recover all of them. You know, hit points, magic points, status ailments such as poison, you know, etc., etc. You can also save anywhere on the world map. That's a good thing to know. If not, the game would be much more difficult than it is. So we're going to save. It's like I said earlier, saving over the previous one, which, you know, oddly enough, or funnily enough, was most likely saved at the exact same point in the game, first save. So whoever played this game, most likely me, started this game and then never continued it. So we're going to save over that. Yep, see, 9 minutes. We're playing a slightly more leisurely pace, but we're also going to skip over a lot of the redundant stuff. I'm not going to subject you to videos of me grinding, for example, unless I feel it's important to tell the story. Even considering all of this, you know, this is probably going to end up being like 30, 40 hours of content alone, because this game is quite deep. When I first played this game, I never played a game that took this long to defeat. Like, you wouldn't know it by the most recent Zelda, Breath of the Wild, but even Zelda used to be much shorter games than like this. This is like a 50, 60 hour game. Even Link to the Past is only like 12, I think. So this is important. Right now they're going over their strategy, because this monster, this giant snail, actually eats lightning and stores the energy in its shell. So it's telling us, the player, you know, form your strategy. Don't attack the shell, otherwise you might regret it. So whatever you do, don't attack the shell. And this is a good gateway for whether you're ready for the rest of the game. If you can't follow simple instructions, you're going to lose. So start off with 2 attacks. I know I can usually do 2, probably not 3. We'll just heal for the time being. Yeah, that's the signal. You know, he growls and then he retreats into his shell. What's cool is that the Mystery Woman actually has more choices of attacks than Wedge and Vix do. And in case you're wondering, Wedge is indeed a reference to Star Wars. His buddy's name was actually supposed to be Biggs, not Vix. So there is that. Alright, shell, monster. I want to attack the monster. Try out one of those exclusive attacks that only the Mystery Woman can do. Yeah! Hit points are noted by 2 different things. If the hit points show up in white, that means that they suffered damage, which the whelp just did. If the hit points are green, that means that it's an increase. That means it's a healing effect. We'll just wait here. Time actually passes. Oh, I think I forgot to set that too. The active time thing. So I'll fix that next chance I get. But time actually passes if you sit around in the menu waiting to pick what you're gonna do. You know, your time is actually passing and your enemies can attack you in the meantime. And see, I didn't show you what happens if you attack the shell. It's actually a devastating counterattack. It's like lightning comes from the ceiling, and it hurts quite a bit. Potion is like a strong tonic. It recovers even more health. I think it's 250 hit points, as opposed to the 50 hit points a tonic does. Potions are always nice to have. You almost never get to a point where potions aren't enough. Tonics can become redundant after a while, though. Alright, so here's Tritoch. This is the Esper that we're coming to see. By the way, you know, I know that a lot of the names in this version of the game have been retconned because of the faulty translation. You know, I'm going by the original because that's what I grew up playing. Maybe one day I'll become more of a fan of the, you know, revised version, but that day is not today. This freaked me out the first time I played it. Keep in mind, I was fairly young. I've always wanted to make a movie of this game. Just imagine this in movie form. It would be epic. I mean, just think about it. It could be like a Kickstarter project. There's so many good remixes on the internet of all this amazing music. It would be awesome. You probably just heard my dog scratching in the background. You know, yeah, I usually record with animals in the room. Sometimes it's foster cats. This time it happens to be my 2 dogs. So the Mystery Woman wakes up in a strange bed in Narshe and meets up with this guy. They had mentioned the slave crown earlier. Robs her of her conscious thoughts. So at this point, we get to name the mystery woman. I usually like to stick with the original names. Terra. That is one thing that's always annoyed me about this game, is by default all of the names are in caps, but I think that's also kind of a Japanese thing too. There's a reason for it in Japan. Like in pro wrestling, they would often put the heels, the bad guys, names in all caps, and I think that there's like deeper symbolic meaning in Japan for that kind of thing. You know, I was sort of a English grammar Nazi growing up. I'm not anywhere close to that now because I've matured, and I think English is a silly thing to be a Nazi about, but more power to you if that's your thing. Anyway, it still kind of annoys me because I would like for the names to be normal, but you know, you can change all of your characters, but you know, other characters still have them, and you know, why bother? It's better just to be used to it. This is right outside. You know, here comes the cavalry, the reinforcements. They are after that woman. Nah. It's funny, you know, just a minute ago the player was taught to listen to what they were being told, but in this case you actually get rewarded for exploring, and it's the first time you do. You know, there's an elixir usually in clocks, and that's the door they're knocking at. I can't go out that way, so I shall do what the man said. Arvis is actually his name. It reveals that later. Arvis says to make your way out through the mines. So we are now playing as Terra, and as I said, I wanted to change another thing in the configuration. Where is it? Okay, yeah. So battle mode, wait. If I choose active, that means time always passes. And you know, the way I play RPGs, I play them very leisurely. But if that's not your thing, if you're more of a, you know, fast-paced chess type of person, you can switch it to active, where you're constantly getting attacked the more time you waste in your menus. So I'm going to keep it as wait. Okay, yeah. And I have a few options here in the menu. If I had more than one, I can have up to 4 people in my team. But, so I can move them around in order, and I can also move them from front to back. In the back row, your attacks do half the amount of damage, usually, unless it's a long-range weapon, but you also take half the amount of damage. So there's definitely some strategy there. There's a party member you want to keep alive, and that actually comes into play, you know, before too long. You'll want to move that party member to the back row. So I have the ability to cast fire, and you know, if you press the shoulder buttons, you can actually choose multiple targets and take out everyone in one round. Good thing to do if you're fighting solo without any, you know, backup, which I am now. Always a good idea to save when you come to a save point, because you never know what's going to take you out. And I always like to collect these treasures. I can always come back later and collect them. What you don't know now is that it's a little later than you would expect. I can't get back in these caves immediately once I leave. It takes actually a few more hours of playing. Terra gained a level, so now I'm level 5. If I'm not mistaken, the levels go from 1 to 99. One thing that's cool about this game is levels don't mean a whole heck of a lot as far as how strong your character is. I mean, obviously it has a factor, but there's other things at play, which we'll get into later. For right now, it's not important to gameplay to know those things. Repo Man always throws wrenches. You know, there's a lot of tropes in Final Fantasy, and I believe that's one of them. I'm not bothering to heal because I have to know that I'm going to be not using Terra here shortly. Starting now, actually. See, she's cornered until this happens. She falls, you know, down to the lower level of the caves, and the fall and the lack of sleep and the dizziness and whatever just kind of overtakes her. And now we're entering a dream sequence. Kefka. This is the guy that was foreshadowed earlier. Here's him putting the slave crown on Terra. This enemy, oh my gosh, Kefka is iconic. And in my opinion, Final Fantasy, at least the games that I played, have not quite approached this level of villain that Kefka is. Sephiroth is in the same league. I have to give the edge to Kefka just a little bit, though, because he's a nihilist, and nihilism is something that we can all relate to. A lot of us have some degree of nihilism, you know, just the belief that life is without purpose. But, you know, in Kefka's point, he wants to exterminate life. He just basically wants to end existence as we know it. And that's nihilism taken to an extreme. And that sort of becomes the theme of this game, is what is the point of living? This is a flashback of the Empire sort of discovering magic and deciding to use it to further their agenda. So there she is, lying completely helpless. Returning to Arvis's home, and who the heck is this? Treasure hunter and trail-worn traveler, searching the world over for relics of the past. His name is Locke, one of the main characters in this game. He's an interesting character, too. Semantic nonsense. I love that. It is semantic nonsense. He obviously touches a nerve by calling him a thief. Almost like the Han Solo of the game. Not quite, but almost. I definitely think there was a lot of inspiration, though. I see a lot of Han Solo in Locke. So I don't know how long I wasn't recording for, but just in case you weren't around to hear it, you know, I had to fight one battle with Mog because his dance technique relies on you fighting in different types of environments, such as just now I was fighting in the caves. I'm not going to bother to revive that wounded Moogle. I feel I can take on the boss with 3 party members instead of 4, and once I take him on and beat him, it's all over. Gonna take out the Lobos first because they're weaker. And so that means fewer attacks being inflicted upon me every round. Because every round, each person involved in the battle gets 1 turn. Gets 1 attack or skill or whatever to do. Whether you're attacking or, you know, attack or defense, basically. Of course, there's variables to that. There's haste, which allows you to attack more frequently. And there's slow, which allows you to attack less frequently. See at the bottom right of the screen next to the hit points? Oh dang, lock fell. Oh well. The little bar, like Kupop, he just, you know, got the full bar. That means he's ready to attack. You don't see your enemies, but you can see your own. There's also things that allow you to attack multiple or do multiple things at 1 turn. That's of course later on in the game, because that's more advanced stuff. Notice how Locke freaks out over her having amnesia. So that's a little bit of foreshadowing that it touches. It's another thing that touches a nerve. Calling him a thief, and the idea of a girl having amnesia under his care. Both of these things freak him out a little bit. And this level of devotion from a stranger kind of, Tara is not used to this. So she's kind of wrapping her head around the idea that this strange man is willing to help her so much. He has multiple reasons for wanting to help her. Personal and professional reasons. See, there's the secret entrance to the cave. I'm not going to go all the way back and show you, but if I were to go back, I would not be able to go in. And this is what happens if I try to enter the town now. The town's a little bit on edge after getting attacked. And the game's telling me where to go. Southward to Figaro. Or Figaro, as I used to say. But I'm pretty sure it's meant to be Figaro. Here's the tutorial part. This will basically teach you everything you need to know about the game, because this is the school. That recovers my hit points, which, yep, Locke should be good now. Gonna come in here to save. Now, if you happen to be playing this game for the first time, I highly, highly recommend you talk to all of these people, because you'll learn a lot. And you're like, ooh, a treasure chest. Monster in a box. Valuable lesson learned. Always be ready to fight. Now, it's not much of a monster in a box. And then, usually there's still an item, which you'll get afterward. Ha! Sometimes monsters lurk inside of treasure chests. See, they knew that you would go straight for that treasure chest without talking to them. And I just find that funny. But yeah, definitely talk to all of these people if you're playing the game for the first time. It's like, the lessons become more and more advanced the further left you go. Like, you go all the way to the left in that room, you get the more advanced stuff. Which, we'll go over all of that stuff as it comes up. Sleeping bag. If you're at a save point, that completely rejuvenates one person in your team. Of course, you can pick who you want it to rejuvenate. And we're ready to go. And this is the overworld. Notice on the map, I'm the red dot that's moving. All the little white dots are destinations. World isn't terribly big. It's not Breath of the Wild by any stretch of the imagination, but it's big enough. Leafers are sort of one of the first monsters you come across in the overworld. So let's just time-lapse to Figaro. Okay, here we are. We're in the middle of the desert, and we're at a castle. Enter the castle. It's funny, this is the only part of the game where they actually do that. Any other time you enter the castle, they just let you walk right in. To my memory, at least. We're at Figaro Castle. We can't really explore very much at the moment. Here's the basement, and he will not let me go down those stairs yet. That's dangerous. Figaro Castle engine room. We're ready to leave at a moment's notice. What could that possibly mean? Here's the prison. I forget what you call it. He won't let me through now, but later on I can actually go and talk to them. Right now the game is directing me to the throne room. It doesn't really want me exploring it because go see the king. Yeah, I need to see King Edgar because Locke here is in a alliance with the king. Classified. Insider information. And here is the king. Notice there's 2 thrones. No, the second throne is not for the queen. But it is empty. That line leading into naming him tells you so much of what you need to know about King Edgar of Figaro. He is such a ladies' man. Figaro and the Empire are allies. For now. But it does reassure her a little bit because she was an agent of the Empire. That is so funny. He's obviously used lines like that in the past with varying degrees of success. Terra seems to be completely immune to his charm. A normal girl would have found him dashing, but she's hardly normal. And I love how this game kind of gets into the idea of what it really means to be, you know, a human being. It's almost... it's what a lot of people nowadays call being asexual, not having a sex drive. And, you know, Terra is a good poster child for that idea. At no point in the game that I remember does she really express a desire to be like in a romantic relationship with anyone. Gestahl, that's the Emperor. That is the person that's over Kefka. You know, Kefka's sort of Darth Vader, and Gestahl is Emperor Palpatine. So at this point, I should be able... I might have been able to do it already, but at this point, I can go to the stores. Items. I'll actually come back to the item shop because the other place sells tools, which I consider more important. So, I already got an auto crossbow, noise blaster, and a bioblaster. Bioblaster is sort of like crop dusting poison. The noise blaster is sort of like a big air horn. So they're all attack items, which Edgar will be able to use. Even though it doesn't show him as part of my party yet, he is. Basically, anyone that you get to name is part of your party. And this game boasts an incredibly large amount of characters. So let's see. I don't really need any tents yet. 4 sleeping bags should be plenty. I would feel comfortable with a few more Phoenix Downs. I always like to buy things in even, you know, nice, even numbers. I know 5 isn't an even number, but, you know, it's sort of like half of 10, which, you know, 1 hand's worth. So it has that psychological aspect. I would like at least one of these. Echo Screen cures mute. Soft cures petrify. Antidote cures poison. I'll actually do 5 antidotes. Tincture is recovering magic. Right now, Terra's the only character that uses magic. One should be plenty. But I would like to fill out my tonics. Nice round 30. Now I can explore. Already talked to him. So, kind of like more Star Wars inspiration. You know, like the Jedi were an ancient religion that studied the Force. Mage Knights were sort of an ancient religion that studied magic. Not everyone believes it in the modern world. So, a lot of people are in disbelief that such a thing even truly exists. So, Figaro manufactures weapons. They are very technologically advanced. What the game is actually looking for is there's a specific person I need to talk to here at Figaro Castle. And it's this person right here. I believe this is Matron. Yep. Edgar has a twin brother. He was such a nice boy. That's who the other throne was for. He is not here. Edgar's twin brother, who traded the throne for his own freedom. Sabin. If you're a fan of pro wrestling, there's a wrestler named Chris Sabin. I believe, I'm almost positive he was named after this character. He named his character after this character. Okay, so at this point, I believe I'm supposed to go back and talk to Edgar again to trigger the next event. Now, of course, if you're playing this game blind for the first time, there's no way you can know this, so you can consider this game pretty much like a walkthrough. I played this game enough to really give you some helpful hints. By no means should you consider this a comprehensive walkthrough, because that's not the purpose of this video. Yeah, now that I've triggered the Sabin memory, and now the game's aware of him, the Chancellor is here to talk about him. I love that. The succession was settled with a coin toss. Such an amazing scene later on. Because it shows a flashback of that particular coin toss. Kefka. There's his music. Amazing character. Great theme music. This is such a funny scene. There's sand in my boots, and the two soldiers who are probably, you know, used to much more important assignments or cleaning the sand out of his shoes. They're peons to him. They're pawns in a game of chess. Out of my way. Just like that Shaggy 2 Dope video. Very much like Darth Vader. Ignore the Empire, allies! See, at this point, she has no idea why they're doing so much cover-up to protect her. And, likewise, we, the viewer, the player, we don't really know that yet either. Always a charmer. This is where Tara will spend the night. That's Treasure Hunter. So this is important exposition right here. This pretends to support the Empire. Truth is he's collaborating with the Returners, an organization opposed to the Empire. Inspired by the Rebel Alliance, no doubt. That's what I really wish they would have left, you know, Biggs as Biggs instead of changing it to Vix. Because the Star Wars reference at the very beginning of the game really gets you in the proper mindset as far as where the inspiration for this game came from. The further the story goes, the less it is inspired by Star Wars, but it's really cool to see that fan service, in my opinion. Me being a Star Wars fan myself. Right down to it being called the Empire. Oh no. Something did happen to Edgar's precious Figaro. Fire, 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 fire. We all know what that's inspired from, Beavis and Butthead. Or Angry Video Game Nerd. Fire, 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 fire. I love that gag. That gag is so funny. If you're not familiar with it, look it up. Angry Video Game Nerd. I forget what episode. So something's about to happen. How utterly delightful. That is so funny. Kind of gives you an insight into the way he thinks. Definitely inspired by the Joker, I think. Because you can't really tell because of the Super Nintendo's graphical limitations. But Kefka is definitely... He is a jester. He's a clown. I think that that was his original role in the Empire, was to entertain the Emperor. And for whatever reason, he got promoted. That would be an interesting thing to delve into if one were to ever do a fan-made movie. Anyway, notice how Figaro Castle is submerging into the sand. It's almost like a submarine for the desert. This was top secret technology up until this point. So here we are, being pursued by the Magitech armor. Fight. We're going to hit him with some magic. And see, they were talking about Terra's abilities earlier, but to actually see it, you know, kind of freaks them out a little bit. Because keep in mind, magic is not a commonly believed thing in this day and age. Magic? Here they are whispering about her. I just love how all of this is just taking place while the Emperor's soldiers are just, you know, patiently waiting for them to finish their conversation. That cracks me up. You can actually trigger this cutscene at a later point during a later battle if you don't use any magic during this battle. Here they are acting like they're going to go away. And the battle resumes. We demonstrate that noise blaster I bought earlier. It's like a giant air horn. It confuses them. That's indicated by the way they're turned backwards. See, he just attacked himself. He doesn't know which way is which. Hit him with some of that fire. Uh-oh. Terra falls. Hit him with a crossbow. I'm not too worried about losing this battle, which is why I'm not reviving her. See? Just one. The only drawback is that Terra's not going to get any hit points, but I'm trying to conserve my supplies. And the returners make their valiant escape. Son of a submariner. It's so funny. A turkey's a bad person. Quit jiving me, turkey. A turkey's a bad person.